Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Jay Griffin, Chair of the Hawaii PUC, and I'm joined virtually by my colleagues, Commissioner Jennifer Potter, Commissioner Leo Suntian. Purpose of our status conference is for the Commission to discuss with Hawaii Electric Kapolei energy storage questions raised in response to the recently filed Joint Stipulated Procedural Schedule as it relates to interconnection issues for the Kapolei BESS Project. And be even a little more focused in the interest of time. I have the filing here, the letter. I think, or at least I could, we have concerns with the timing of the amendment being filed after all these other items in the procedural schedule, notwithstanding the footnote here. But the bottom line seems like the impetus needs to be getting the interconnection studies done and the information out to everyone so we can make a decision, not doing this in opposite order. So we'll go through further discussion, but that's really and we prefer to do it, try and talk through this and get resolution rather than further written submissions back and forth. So that's the real focus of today. Before we go further, just a little bit on the format. Commission's hosting the status conference through WebEx for the parties. You're all here. We're also live streaming this for the public and stakeholders via our YouTube link provided on the Commission's website. And with this link, public and stakeholders will be able to view the status conference, but not able to provide comments. We're recording this and recording it beyond our YouTube channel. For the meeting notice here, we have asked for discussion of the interconnection-related issues regarding Kapolei BESS, including timelines for completing, submitting the necessary studies. So if we can first get an update on that and then save the time for questions, starting with the consumer advocate, commission staff, and commissioners. So thank you with that. And I guess I will turn it over first to Hawaii Electric for, I guess, some further explanation here of the timelines, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. I can start, Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, commissioners. So I just first wanted to state that, we heard the commission about trying to expedite these projects. So one way that we thought to do that was to file the overhead line applications in advance of completion of the IRS amendment, as we had all the information needed from the studies that would be required for the overhead line. So we were looking for ways to move forward and expedite the projects, and especially with KES, as the overhead line approval is key, a critical path item for their financing. And so that's really the route that we were looking at, was how can we be creative, Chair, to your request, to try to find ways to actively move these projects forward more quickly. And this was one of the things that we came up with. And with the institution of early engineering and using the preliminary facility study, which we hadn't done in previous stages of other projects, that allowed us to get the information we needed to complete our overhead line request and be able to file that in advance of the IRS amendment being completed. That being said, Chair, to your question about the status of the study, so we actually are in agreement on the final facility study. We reached agreement and executed the letter last week, agreeing that was complete. And I believe we have given KES the system impact study results, so there will be, I think, some further restudy we noted on some upgrades to the battery, slight modeling difference in the battery chosen, but overall that work has been substantially completed as well. And so we are moving into the IRS amendment drafting phase. We actually kicked that off today. And so, we do have all of the information needed from those studies to complete the IRS amendment, and we are working to do that. Typically, we provide for 75 days to complete the IRS amendment from sign off of the facility study. However, recognizing the importance of, KES's schedule, actually at the time that we executed the ESPPA in this docket, we had agreed to already shorten that time period to 60 days. And then also typically we provide for about 30 days from completion of that to complete the filing then with the commission. But given that we had already done the overhead line portion and that we had, we trying to do certain of the work in parallel, we felt we could complete that within 14 days. So that's where we had come up with the schedule that we have filed in the procedural schedule for the timeline of filing the IRS amendment. That being said, if there are ways throughout that we can expedite, we're always looking to shorten time periods, but we wanted to provide a realistic time frame for the commission upfront based on what is contractually set in the PPA documents for filing of the IRS amendment. But we're looking at things like preparing the filing concurrently with negotiations of the amendment so that we can shorten that time period even further and file it sooner. But again, our hope was to move forward with overhead line prior to that based on the early work we had done in early engineering and in the preliminary facility study and getting out. The other thing we did in this round of RFPs was we provided information related to system impact study as we went along in the process versus waiting for the entire final result. So that's how we were able to move ahead and be able to have the information needed to file the overhead line approval in advance.
Okay, is there any other, on the Hawaiian Electric side, any other additions to that? Is any further additions from the KES side before we get to questions from the parties here?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you for calling this meeting. This procedural schedule is really important to the timely success of KES. The project will need both the IRS amendment execution and the approval of the overhead line to be able to close on financing for the project. Based on our current schedule, we would want to have both of those by the first week of September to allow for sufficient time for the diligence required by financiers to close on the facility. This financial close date is part of the critical path for the project. If that gets pushed out, the battery deliveries would also get pushed out, which is currently our binding constraint in the schedule. So the COD would be pushed out accordingly. So we agree with the approach of trying to bifurcate these to allow both of them to move in parallel so that we can close on financing in a timely fashion. Thank you, Chair.
Next, we provided the section for Q&A and discussion. So first is Dean Consumer Advocate's Office.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Ms. Marcy. I don't think we have any questions. I think similar to the commission, I think we have been trying to expedite as much as we can in the areas that we can. So we did submit questions regarding the overhead line, but so that we have our questions on the record. So yeah, we don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. Commission staff. Looking at it, nothing
at this time.
Okay. Then I'll turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Sunsian.
Just one clarification, Rebecca, you mentioned some days to complete the IRS amendment. So it was, you guys are modifying it internally, I guess, 60 days from 75 days, right? Which is the usual. And then you mentioned.
Sorry, one clarification, Commissioner. The typically our PPAs, and if you look at the other stage 1 and stage 2 PPAs, they provide a 75-day. But when we actually negotiated KES, knowing that we needed to do this fast from the beginning, we had already agreed to the 60-day.
Okay, and then you mentioned
the 60-day was in the PPA.
Okay, and then you mentioned another 30 days to complete the filing. So that totals now 90 days, right? And I assume that's a filing to the commission on the IRS amendment. Or am I mistaken there?
Sure. So yes, our typical timeline is 75 days to negotiate and then 30 days to do the application. But in this case, because we were able to do the application in advance, then we were able to suggest getting that down to 14 days. And of course, we're going to try to do it in parallel so we can file, upon completion of the amendment. But as I mentioned, we wanted to provide a realistic date. So we had provided the 14 days to allow for drafting of the filing after completion of the IRS amendment. So it would be a total of like 74 days if we took the entire time.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, this is Colton, but just to be clear, as Becca mentioned, our intent in working, and this is from Hawaiian Electric side as well as I think for KS, although those are the timelines that are currently in place today, we're both working to do this as quickly as possible. That's what we have committed in paper, but we all recognize the need to do this quickly.
Okay, thanks, Colton. Thank you. That's the only question I had, Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Potter.
Don't have any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, hopefully this will be quick. But look, given the track record of the prior IRS amendments that contained unwelcome and nasty surprises, I don't see how this goes forward without us seeing that first. So the critical path item here is getting the studies done and the amendment in. It's not a track record for us to do otherwise. Is that clear? So I hear the timelines and everything, but you guys got to go back. The reason we're calling this is you need to go back now and rethink and talk that through. You haven't provided any of these studies. And we've been down, and given what's already happened with all these other projects, we're not going to repeat that. So is there something I'm missing here?
Chair, this is Colton. We hear you. We'll huddle with the KES team on this. We hear where you're coming from. But I guess the request that we have is if the PUC is gonna require the IRS amendment to be filed before acting upon the overhead line extension request, that determination, can we ask that the process and schedule for that overhead line determination to continue so that all of the discovery and other important work with that process still continue to happen while the teams work on the IRS amendment?
My suggestion is you show us how you're going to speed up and expedite things before we talk about what we're going to do on our side. This has been known for a long time. You told us months ago it was imperative and critical. And if you want to keep putting this on the commission's back, it's not going to help. So we need everyone to pull together and get the information to us. We'll all be able to look at it. And if things are as you say, then things will probably go quickly. If they're not, that's why we're saying what we're saying.
Okay.
Understood,
Again,
Chair. I just wanted to, go ahead, Colton.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Becca.
I did just want to confirm that the studies are done. So it is just a matter of now putting pen to paper and completing
And I checked,
the
and I
IRS
don't,
amendment.
have you submitted them? Have you submitted them to the commission for us to look?
No, we have not yet. We usually submit them with the IRS amendment. So I just wanted to assure you that they are
We may
done.
need some out of the box thinking here to get the timelines moved up.
I hear you.
Look, we're not going to make calls in the dark. So please get the information as quickly as we can. see how people come to terms, and then we'll see what we can do.
Okay, so if we have that opportunity to file things incrementally and separately, we'll figure out how best to do that to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I guess let me be clear. What I strongly encourage is for the parties to go back, take this, see what can be done to move everything up, and repropose a schedule. Provide as much information as you can as soon as possible. That is going to help the decision-making environment here. Holding off on us until the end and then demanding things done in what you want, beginning of September. And the study's not supposed to be filed until September 10th. It's going to be tough. So we need, please provide the information as soon as possible.
Understood.
Okay. And again, we use this format so that it avoid, I mean, it's trying to expedite things versus filings back and forth. So that's all I have on our side. Any other questions related to that? Okay, I did have one follow-up question. I believe it was in one of the letters. KES talked about rolling commissioning of the system itself. Could you please provide any other discussion there, elaboration?
Sure. We're currently working with KES to see if rolling commissioning is an option, and we've done this before in the past with, for example, wind farms where we've commissioned turbines, you know, as they come up online. And the intent would be to get through the testing process more quickly versus waiting till all the equipment is in place. And, you know, if issues do come up during testing, it'll allow us to fix it as we're going along versus having to make all the adjustments at the end. So we are working with the KES team to figure out how best to incorporate that and see if that is something that will work for the project.
I guess on the KES side, any, I mean, comment on that given what have been identified as the delays related to the procuring the battery supply?
Yeah, Chair. I think that type of commissioning it would make sense for this project, especially given the scale. With that type of rolling commissioning, you can, as the batteries are being placed and delivered and placed and wired up, you can start the commissioning to identify problems earlier on rather than waiting until the end. That way, if there are any issues while commissioning a battery, it's identified earlier in the schedule to prevent further delay. So yeah, we're exploring it with our EPC contractor, and we'll continue to discuss it with HECO. But I think it makes a lot of sense for this project, especially given that the battery delivery schedule is the binding constraint for our timeline. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's helpful. I guess any other updates you can offer as you're providing the other information? I think, again, early, just keep in mind early and often as far as keeping the commission informed and updated on the status of all aspects of the project. Is that fair enough?
That's fair, Chair. And just to note too, we have already ordered some of the long lead item procurement items to ensure that the project remains on track. So we are also taking that step as well.
Okay, thanks. I think that covers all the topics we wanted to talk about here. So thank everyone for your time, attendance, participation today, and look forward to the further steps we have going forward. Appreciate it. Thanks for staff setting all this up on short notice and everyone's flexibility. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.